Hello and welcome to WJTS in.Form. Well, in this in.Form, we're going to do something we'll call this the Conversation with the Congressman. And thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Potter. Joining me in the studio is Larry Buschon. He is the U.S. Representative, the Congressman for District 8. And in Du Bois and Spencer and Perry counties, it's kind of new to us or new to you, I should say, as we're now in your district. And is it different now do you have more or less?
I have about the same number of counties, but I lost 3 counties in the north.
Okay.
And I picked up 3 and a little sliver of Crawford down here in the south. So geographically, I'm very pleased to have Du Bois County, Perry and Spencer, and part of Crawford in the district. The other counties were way up north of Terre Haute.
Well, before when we were in District 9, it stretched all the way from Madison all the way over here to Du Bois County.
It did.
Just seemed to be really an odd setup.
It was.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
But you're in town because you have opened an office in Jasper at City Hall.
I did.
What made that happen?
Well, when I ran for office this time, once I knew I'd picked up the new counties, I made a pledge that we'd open an office in Jasper so that constituents in this region could have close access to a congressional office, and I think that's very important. And so we were very happy today to open our office in the City Hall on the square, and I look forward to having my staff and myself interact with people not only from Jasper and Du Bois County, but anyone that's closer to this office than they would be to Evansville, for example.
How important is it, and do you really hear things at this office? Will people really use it?
Oh, yes, they will. And what we normally do is we have constituent services type issues. We'll have veterans that are having difficulty with the VA system, or we'll have seniors that are having problems with Social Security or Medicare. We occasionally have people that have immigration-related issues with family members or people that they know. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of things that come up that a congressional office can help with, and that's what we'll deal with primarily. It's not really to answer political questions, it's to serve the community as far as their access to the federal government.
Okay, and you're wanting people to contact the office?
Absolutely. If they have issues, please schedule an appointment, come in, or just walk in the office sometime and tell us what we can do to help.
And at the ribbon cutting, you also mentioned that you're going to do traveling offices, that you'll obviously be visiting your other counties.
Yes, and we did that ever since I've been in Congress, since 2011. We have traveling offices. We will announce a traveling office schedule, and we'll probably have some down in Huntingburg and other parts, Rockport and places like that around this area. And we do it throughout my district. I've found that very helpful because once you announce ahead of time, say you live in Rockport, you don't have to drive either to Jasper or to Evansville if you want to get help with some of these issues. So. It's an ongoing thing. We want to have access for all of our constituents and make it as easy as possible.
Is it very different in Washington, D.C. from rural Indiana?
It is, yeah. I usually tell people when I leave Washington, D.C., I'm going back to civilization. and to a certain extent, that's the truth. I mean, Washington, D.C., people inside the Beltway, so to speak, are always talking about politics. And I think it's extremely important to come home every weekend, which I do, and every district work week when we're not in session, because otherwise you can lose touch with what's happening in your district. So I think that's very important. Concerns we have out here may not be the same concerns that everyone else around the country are having. We tend to have more rural-related issues, like farm-related issues and things like that, than bigger cities, for example. But I travel all around my district on the weekends and on the weeks that I'm not in Washington.
Well, in Washington, we're under the sequester.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in the rural area, we're going, okay, I don't know how that really will affect me. Maybe in the bigger area it does. Is that more of a political play that is being used, or is there real truth, pain being caused?
I think for the most part it's politics. And let me tell you why. Because over the last 4 years or so, federal government spending has gone up by over 17% across the board. The sequester cuts are cutting about less than 2% of that back. Some overall across the federal government. Now, some areas are getting more higher level cuts than that. Some programs are getting 5 to 8% cuts. But the reality is that still is not even keeping up with the growth of the federal government. So A lot of the rhetoric out there is political. For example, closing down the White House to visitors. You know, when we're sending literally tens of millions of dollars overseas, we need to keep the White House open for sixth grade students or anybody else that wants to tour the nation's home. It's really, you know, owned by the people. And so that's politics. That's not reality.
There are certain things that I'm sure that it seems like there's always some sort of contention between different parties and things. Where is gun control? Will that become a reality? Is it going to be levels of it?
No, I don't think you'll see much of a change at the federal level, honestly. I think both political parties have a great deal of respect for the Second Amendment rights of our citizens. We've had gun control in the past, an assault weapons ban from '94 to 2004, as you may know, did not change the level of violence at all. And the reason is because unless the federal government is willing to confiscate the current weapons that are out there, putting a ban really doesn't cause a dent in the problem. Listen, we have a violence problem in our country that needs to be seriously addressed. I just don't think that at the federal level, further gun control than we already have in a lot of states and cities is going to solve the problem. Let me reference Chicago, for example, which has some of the toughest gun laws in America. They have one of the most violent cities in America. What we need to do is look at the big picture. Let's talk about why we have a violent society. Let's talk about mental health issues, things like that, other issues related to access to weapons for people that shouldn't get them, and you know, talk about the overall violence that we have, that our children see every day on television and with games. It's a culture, I think, of violence that needs to be addressed. I just don't think at the federal level any gun control is going to be able to help.
How far should the federal government go on controlling, you know, anything? There's federal laws and there are state laws, and I know sometimes states pass laws, but the federal has a different law. How far should that reach?
Well, I think the thing we need to remember is that the states created the federal government, not the other way around. And so I'm a big believer in as much of local control or state control in the government as appropriate should be done. There are roles for the federal government, but I do think the federal government has gotten too big and it's overstepping its bounds in a lot of areas. You know, we need to provide for the defense of our nation. We need to provide for infrastructure and things like that. But there are a lot of things I think the states and the local communities do better than the federal government. The governments locally and at the state are closer to the people. They're more nimble when it comes to changing laws or adjusting policy for the citizens. And so I think I'm a big proponent of giving as much control to the states and local communities as we can. And that's what I promote.
There has been talk that the president brought up about raising the minimum wage.
Yes.
And on business ends, there's going, well, that's not going to solve things. How do you stand on that?
Well, I think that, you know, if you look at it from a practical standpoint, you know, no one wants anyone working full-time, supporting a family to be below the poverty level. That said, most of the jobs that are minimum wage are people that are not necessarily supporting a family. They're college students and others that are working in these jobs. And when you talk to the business community and you would look at what would happen if the minimum wage is raised dramatically, you'll see difficulty in having the number of jobs available out there. So I have concerns about making sure that the minimum wage keeps up with inflation, as it should. But on the other hand, currently dramatically increasing it, I think would actually hurt the economy and hurt people's ability to get these jobs in the first place. So I'm open to discussing it. I think we should have a discussion about it, but I want to make sure we do the right thing that you know, doesn't cause some unintended consequences.
And really changing the subject, do you miss, well, maybe I shouldn't say do you miss being a doctor, because you're still a doctor.
Well, I'm still a doctor,
do you miss
but
practicing?
I don't do so. Yeah, I do. I miss the patients and the families and the daily interaction with my patients and their families and the immediate results that you get when you help someone out. You know, I was a heart surgeon before, and so, you know, when someone's in trouble and you're able to help them out and you know, make their quality of life better and sometimes save their life, there's a lot of satisfaction in that, and I miss that a lot.
You probably are frustrated by how slow government moves then in
that
retrospect
is
to
very true. The federal government moves at a a snail's pace compared to what I did before. But I look at the big picture. I mean, I think our federal government was designed to move slowly, and I try to look at the long-term picture and where our country's going and what direction we're headed in. And right now, the country's not headed in the right direction, and so I'm hopeful we can get this thing turned around.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add as we wrap up?
No, I would just like to say that it is going to be an honor to have an office here in Jasper to represent Du Bois County and Perry and Spencer and part of Crawford counties, that we will have a strong presence in all the counties in my district, including the ones I just mentioned. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, you can go to my website, or if you don't have internet access, please call us, and we'll do what we can to help.
Okay, well, Congressman, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure and an honor having you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Our guest has been Congressman Larry Buschon, representing the 8th District, which is basically southwest Indiana. Thank you for watching WJTS in.Form. We are local people watching local people.